And by the way, isn't food stamps, forget whatever everybody's politics, you give somebody food stamps, they gotta spend it.
Yeah,
it's the best way to make sure the money goes back in the economy right now. Isn't it, forgetting the liberal, conservative, right, left, isn't that, if we're trying to spend $1 by a government, if $1 is getting put back in the economy, it has all the ancillary benefits, isn't that the last thing we'd want to cut right now? So forget the morality of it. I'm just saying the practicality.
It's very easy to find the 1 or 2 programs which are maybe you should not cut.
Well, should defense be on the table?
Absolutely. I've always been consistent on that. So I actually worked in the Pentagon. And very classic, and all government bureaucracies do this. We're going to sequester you, we're going to shrink you, and guess what they do? The military says, well, we're going to eliminate a Ranger battalion, get people screaming. Or we're going to not let people do tours in the White House. It's a game. The sequester is ridiculous. It's a decimal point on the.
I don't think our friends at West Point would agree on that. They're getting squeezed hard.
Yeah, but so let's get the government to start governing and reducing spending. See, where I disagree is it's not just about when you get off the debt merry-go-round, but it's what you spend it on. And we are doing what we call malinvestment. So when you have all of this government bloat, that's malinvestment. That's capital that's sucked up in being sucked in unproductive activities. We need to free it up and actually do something that invests in infrastructure. But no, there's no real push for infrastructure. They want to keep all of these programs going. So what you spend on matters as much.
Look, I think that on that score I do, and I myself have written about this, which is that I think that one of the, and actually it's fairly non-controversial about infrastructure, because I think a lot of people are talking about that can provide a lot of benefits, and both short-term and long-term in terms of productivity, but also short-term. So I would agree. I think that the composition of government spending matters. This is not, as I said, this is not just about paying people to stare at the sky, right? It's about
I'll give you another one. When it comes to infrastructure,
sorry?
I'll give you another one, and I know we're heavy guys, but I think about it in my kids' terms. I have to do for a living covering storms. If anybody thinks Sandy is some anomaly that we're not going to see again, you are living in such a dream world. We are going to have to do something about the shores of America and the coastlines. It's going to happen every year, and you know how much money, source, and pain this brings? You can't solve all the problems. You've got to do something about it. And we pretend now that hopefully spring someday will come, right? This is going to be a problem for another day. We have to deal with this. And when the first bridge collapses, I'm not talking Minnesota, I'm talking about a big one, everyone's going to say, who knew? And we're all going to point to the reports and say, we've been talking about this for 50 years. Again, and then people are going to say, how are you going to pay for it?
And
right?
I would say, though, let's redefine austerity. Instead of worrying about the pennies today, let's worry about the out years. These long-term liabilities. Medicare is unsustainable. It is in crisis. It will collapse on itself. Worry about the long term, and you don't have to impact people's lives today one iota. So that's structural. We need to do structural things so that we can actually get out of this mess.
Fair enough, but I do think if we're going to get to wherever we want to go, there has to be at least the appearance, and I believe the reality of shared sacrifice. And right now, if you think about what's on the chopping block, okay, you're not saying military, but come on. I mean, they campaigned on closing loopholes, and now you talk about it, they'll change language on you. And so, I don't know what you're talking about.
The most hated word out in the political stomp is balanced. We got to have a balanced approach, which means 50% taxes and 50% spending reduction. Back a year ago, Obama was saying, "Oh, we got to go, massive reduction in spending and some revenue."
I do remember doing the debate where they said if you can have $10 in cuts and $1 in revenue, how many hands shot up? I must have missed them going up.
Moral courage.
Yeah, exactly.
May I say something
yes.
over here? We've
Last
been talking
words,
so
please.
much about spending, we've not talked enough about taxes. Now, if you look at the claim is often that there's a negative relationship between taxes and growth. But in fact, if you look at the data for the US, there is absolutely no such relationship whatsoever. In fact, you see a positive relationship, right? That doesn't mean the high taxes cause high growth. But anyway, the point is that it's far from obvious that cutting taxes will bring about an economic growth. In fact, Joel Slemrod's work is pretty definitive in terms of the international evidence that the relationship between taxes and growth is.
I got to hit a break here, and it's killing him. He'd love to jump on that one. I know that. Jamee, thank you so
It's
much
all
for
good.
joining us. Do not be a stranger. Please come back. Now, we
you.
take a quick break. When we do return, we're going to turn to the issue of same-sex marriage. Has support for this issue reached a tipping point? Will we soon see same-sex marriage legalized from coast to coast? And what other big issue will experience such a rapid sea change over the next decade? I'll ask the guys at the table that after this.